Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another broadcast of the Lawrence Report. On tonight's broadcast, we will be discussing episode 4 of Lawman Bass Reeves. Now, I have been enjoying this series right here myself. I just want to send a happy holidays, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. That's why I kind of haven't been posting a lot lately, but I am back now. I'm ready to hop in the saddle like Bass Reeves. So in this episode right here, we do get a time jump. It's a couple years ahead, and Bass, he is actually back with Billy Crow. In the previous episode, we saw what happened to Billy Crow, but now Billy Crow is riding with Bass as his posse man, basically. And in this time jump right here, it is clear that Bass Reeves is basically undercover. He's basically in disguise, right? And he's approaching this woman. This woman has her shotgun pointed at Bass, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, ma'am! I ain't mean to do no harm." You know how Bass talk. Love his accent, right? And Bass is quoting these Bible scriptures to this lady, and this lady's like, "Oh yeah, well you know the Bible, you know the word, huh?" He's like, "Yes, ma'am, I know the word." And from there, he basically tells her, about this whiskey situation. I mean, considering that Bass is undercover, he even tells this woman that, my name is Joe Gamble. And his goal is to capture, her two sons for basically this bounty. And later in this episode, we see Bass, and Bass now actually has a carousel, basically a whole team of other men that are like him, and one of the men, while they're at the campfire at nighttime, was telling this story about Mr. Sundown. Apparently, Mr. Sundown is either a man or another ghost or spirit or something of that nature that after he captures his victims, he tends to eat them. And this man is telling all these stories about Mr. Sundown. Bass is not feeling it. Bass is not liking it. He's like, "Hey, I need you to quiet down on that, try to get some rest, we can talk about something else." And the guy continues to talk about Mr. Sundown. So Bass again tells him, "Hey, that's enough." So from there, to cool the atmosphere, Billy Crow basically reads a Bible scripture, to calm the tension down, right? But again, this man right here, he wants to fight. So they get into a tussle, little argument here and there about Mr. Sundown, and Bass is not having it. And one of my favorite lines that Bass says in this episode, he says, "Until God says otherwise, I'm the only law there is." And basically from there, he's knocking out, this guy who keeps talking about Mr. Sundown. So also in this episode, we see Bass' wife. She is attending church, attending service, and there is a man that is called up to speak in front of the congregation. This man is named Edwin. Now, we've seen Edwin in a previous episode of Bass Reeves, where it seems like this man was trying to steal Jeannie away from Bass. This brother is apparently working on some investments, some properties, basically to form a land of paradise is what he's calling it. But of course, this guy Edwin doesn't seem trustworthy. In fact, Jeannie ends up meeting his wife, and Jeannie recognizes the wife from back when they was unfortunately in slavery. And again, I feel like this guy is very manipulative and very condescending, but I'm interested also to see what is his story going to be. Are him and Bass going to meet each other face to face? Because again, in the previous episodes, this man basically was trying to, basically convince Jeannie to get this piano. And it seemed like this dude, I just don't trust this dude Edwin at all. So I'm going to need Bass to take care of this brother right here immediately. Also in this episode, Bass is looking for a horse thief by the name of Silas Cobb. So Bass gets word that this man right here typically loves to hang out in these brothels. And Bass and the team, they arrived at this brothel. And Bass is hearing all of these freaky noises while trying to find out about this guy named Silas Cobb. So he busts in one of the brothel rooms. He does find him with a prostitute. So Bass starts to interrogate Mr. Cobb in this episode. And the prostitute, if I'm not mistaken, she has this gun and she's wheeling the gun around. And Cobb ends up basically jumping out the window. And Billy Crow sees him. And this guy basically ends up, getting shot and end up dying. But at the same time, he wrote a letter to his wife, Grace. So basically from there, Bass and Billy Crow end up riding to Grace's home, and she realizes she basically already knows that Cobb is a low down dirty man. But when Bass arrives, he finds out that Grace is unfortunately blind, so he reads out the letter uh, to her, and so it was such a very sad scene, but unfortunately, it's real life, right? So after Bass delivers this heartbreaking news to Grace, he is basically now, taking a little rest break with his horse, and he kind of hears like another horse from up the hill, and he turns around to his hip, he's reaching for his gun, and he sees like this shadowy figure almost, right? And we believe that this figure could be Mr. Sundown. So that's how the episode ends, with Bass seeing this figure, and I'm pretty sure that is Mr. Sundown. So maybe I believe in episode 5 we're gonna get the backstory of what Mr. Sundown is. Because when I first heard the word sundown, I thought about Sundown Town. So that's what I thought about. But apparently, it is a figure from back in the day that is named Mr. Sundown. So we're going to see what's going to happen with that. I'm pretty sure Bass is going to come out guns blazing because, again, Bass Reeves, he's not scared of too many things, including any type of souls or spirits, shadowy figures, whatever you want to call it, right? If you're watching Bass Reeves, tell me how you're liking this series so far. I'm definitely enjoying it myself. And as always, thank you for tuning in to The Lawrence Report.